Hi, everyone. We are here today with Tara Isabel Zambrano, and she will be reading from her new collection that's not even out yet. It'll be out this fall, Ruined a Little When We Are Born, from Dzanc Books. Tara Isabel Zambrano is a South Asian writer. She is an electrical engineer by profession and currently lives in Texas. She is the author of a full-length flash collection, Death, Desire, and Other Destinations by OK Donkey Press in 2020, and her short story collection, Ruined a Little When We Are Born by Dzanc Books, will be out in fall 2024. Tara's short stories and flash collection have been nominated for Pushcart, Best of the Net, and have appeared in Wigleaf Top 50, Best Small Fictions, Best Microfictions, anthologies. Okay, and this summer, Smokelong Summer, have been reading the advanced reader's copy of the collection, and we have been enjoying it and discussing it for the last few weeks. Welcome, Tara. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Chris, and thank you everybody for being here to, celebrate my upcoming book. And thank you, Smokelong, for having me here. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Well, we love Tara Isabel Zambrano. Now, tell us, Tara, how you became aware of Flash, and do you remember when it all started and how?
Yeah, so I have been writing since I was a kid, though I wasn't writing in English. I was writing in my native language, Hindi. And as I grew older, it kind of stopped for a bit. And then when I came to the US, I was at home with my kids, when they were growing up. So I started writing again. And then I came upon this site called Fictionaut. I don't know how many of you know about it, but it is a very prestigious site to be on only by invitation only. So I somehow managed to get an invitation. And I think that's where I started reading poetry and flash. And that's how I was introduced to it. And I was very attracted to the short form because I was going to start working, and it just seemed like the perfect balance that I would, achieve with like writing a short form and also do my work and take care of other things. So that's how I started it. I tried my hand at it. I don't have a degree in writing or fine arts per se. So it was all just learning on my own as I went along. So that's the beginning of it. I don't know if that answers your question, Chris.
It does. Now, I was involved in Fictionaut, but years and years and years and years ago. Are you still involved with Fictionaut?
So I still have an account there.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Yeah, I pop in every now and then, but I'm not that active on the site. But they still publish stuff. They still comment on each other's work.
Yeah,
they still critique it. So it's at least for me, it was my starting ground. So it's
right.
very important to me.
Now, those workshops that I was involved in maybe in 2007, 2008, around that time. So before that time, there was Zoetrope. And then there was the workshop that I was most involved in, Urbis. And then along came Fictionaut shortly thereafter. And the thing about these workshops was that you realize that the flash portion was very active, and lots of people commenting and lots of people uploading work. And that to me showed me, I want to engage more, and I could engage more with the flash writers because they actually did more. And so I think people, when they saw a short story and it's 8,000 words, like maybe I'm not sure
another time.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to comment on that one. And then you could open a flash and it's like 400 words and you're like, woo, I've got this one. Yeah. Yeah. Was that a similar situation?
Right.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
yes. So I kind of felt like if I wrote Flash, I can done with it quickly. I will get feedback quickly, and I can send it out maybe somewhere to get published quickly.
yeah.
So everything would happen in very quick frame of time,
Mhm.
and that's how I was at least at that time. I still am, but uh, that was back then. So yes,
Right.
so people give more feedback to shorter poems or flash, and that's just because of time, I believe.
Yeah. And there is that practical aspect of it.
Right.
And I think that's the reason a lot of people went there and it became explosive actually
Yes.
back in that day. Okay. All right. So you're going to read
Yeah.
for us, and I can't wait. Um, uh, what would you like to start reading for us?
So I have a story which is a flash story, which is called A Girl with a Painted Tongue.
Mhm.
It was published in Fictive Dream, and then it was published in another anthology very recently. So it's like you suggested, the all the pieces that I'm going to read are flash, so that we keep everybody engaged. Okay. The Girl with a Painted Tongue. The girl in my class paints her tongue with a different color every day. When I see her, she sticks out her tongue, blue, yellow, lavender. It's rude to do that, I say, and she does it again. In class, she sits on the last bench, and I can feel her eyes on my back. When I turn around, she's not there. The teacher takes roll call, and someone says, "Yes," when her name is called. The girl has unusually long legs and arms. Her palms are also painted, smooth, no lifeline, no marks. She carries a mirror with her, uses it to focus light and burn bugs. When she laughs, language falls out on the ground like pebbles, shaking with sound. In my dreams, the girl plucks my eyelashes and makes a string. She inserts the string in my mouth. "I'm pulling out your soul," she says. "Why?" I ask, coughing, about to throw up. "Because I don't have one," she says. I wake up out of breath, my hand over my chest, my heart so loud I get a headache. When I tell my classmates about the dream, they push me and laugh, call me crazy. Watching from a corner, the girl sticks the tip of her tongue out. I instruct the girl to stop appearing in my dreams. "I have no control," she claims, and moves the mirror in her hand, flickering light around me, making me dizzy. "I cannot stop," she says in her sing song voice. "Cannot stop." "Go away," I yell. She shakes her head and pushes the mirror in the pocket of her overalls. "What do you want?" I ask. "I want to play with you," she says. Her tongue is ox blood red, like Indian goddess Kali. She pulls out a doll from her pocket, blonde hair, brown eyes, black wool dress. "This doll can talk," she says, and hands it to me. "Is that so?" The doll looks at me, sticks out her tongue. I almost drop it. "You can have her," the girl says. "No, it's fine," I say, and throw the doll on the floor. The doll gets up and floats in the air, raises her hands. Her palms are painted. "Shit," I scream and run to my class. The girl and the doll follow me, disappear when I run inside the room. Everyone is looking at me, whispering. The girls who pushed me are looking at each other, pointing their fingers at me, giggling. The teacher makes me stand in the corner for being late. She asks me why my palms are painted. After school, when the bus comes, the girl with the painted tongue is back. She sits behind me, quiet. Then she passes me a bag of tortilla chips, orange, flaming hot, my favorite. I look away as if I don't know her and continue licking my palms to get rid of the color, a metallic taste settling in my mouth. "I'm having a party," she whispers in my ear. "You should come. You're the only friend I got." And I think of all the times when I wanted someone to invite me to their birthday and let me play with their toys and sit cross legged on their bed, comfortable to share secrets. Tears stream down my face. I turn around and look at her. Where's your doll? I threw it away because she bothered you, the girl says, her eyes soft and wet. We are rounding up a mountain. The bus is close to the edge, almost flying. This isn't the way to my home, but it's beautiful wherever we are going. The valley below is filled with trees with painted leaves, like little tongues hanging out, little palms with lifelines etched on them. She pulls out the mirror and turns it toward me. I stick my tongue out. In my reflection, she does the same. Thank you.
That's amazing. I would love to see that like cinematically. It would be, well, tongues everywhere. Yeah.
Thank
Uh,
you.
there's another story in your collection, a cow's tongue. Is this
Yes,
the
yes,
title of it?
yes, yes.
Do tongues have a special meaning to you, Tara?
It is also because of language. I
Yeah.
think that I am versed in two languages predominantly, and I think the way the tongue moves is how the words are formed, is how the diction is how you communicate. And then again, they have so much role in so many other things, right? And it's such a it's such an interesting organ, if I may say. It's like it's there, but it's hidden, and it can communicate so much just without even saying something. So I'm always fascinated with it.
Okay, good. I love that. Continue, please.
Okay. This is another one, another flash of mine that was published in Cape Cod Review. It's called Tornado Falling. After the tornado, our hearts are stretched like Tennessee, our ears pointed in the direction of the wind. We have been sucked in the funnel, we have been spat. I carry my newborn screwed to my spine, his tongue licking the skin over my heart. I have gotten used to the weight. Our crumbled house fits into our palms. In my dream, I knock locked doors. Before the tornado, my lover and I barely slept all night. The newborn kept waking us up. My lover pulled up his pants every time he picked up the newborn and brought him to our bed. Honey pink, the baby's gaze, his irises the color of upturned soil. We only had moments to stare at each other to fall asleep again, a little dampness under our eyes where fragrant plants could take root. I think of the half-eaten cake in our fridge. Imagine its crumbs falling off my mouth, like people thrown off the funnel. My dry mouth stays wide open like a dustpan. As I pick through our belongings, my arms seem longer than usual. I'm looking for the postcard my father sent last year before he passed away. It seems my waist has grown overnight, as if holding onto loss. My baby presses my insides like plucking something. I want to bring him out in the sunlight, sing him our favorite song, but gray clouds are stuck above us, the space in between filled with a loud horror of things flying, crashing, an isolated emotion of fear. My lover seems slimmer, hungrier. The funnel has upset his organs, changed his priorities. There is a desert in his eyes, his dark hair long and shaggy, hanging around his face, sad, beautiful. Sometimes he gives me a sour look. I bring him a water bottle. He stares at it for a long time. This is the end, he says, and returns it to me. I stroke his hair. We used to play frisbee. We used to run somewhere here. Our neighbors are standing in their yard, or what used to be, their faces upward to the bare, cloudy ceiling. It's impossible to explain how much I miss the walls. I can see the stretch of my life ahead. My son growing up thinking everything is so goddamn difficult. Over time, I know we will grow apart. I want to think of 10 different ways my life would have been worse. Illness, drugs, but I can't. My chest constricts. I just want to outlive this mess. I don't want to outlive love. A phone rings. They are talking of damage compensation. It will take weeks, months to recover. I know everyone in this world is dying, but it seems it's just us for now. A giant shadow passes over our heads, the blades whirring, a funnel rising, then falling, whipping wind. I hear my name and look around. There's nowhere to go. The newborn cries. My breasts are full and hurting. When he sucks on them, his lips are lined with dust. Thank you.
Yeah, and I remember, thank you. I remember that last line, thinking like, oh, here comes the last line, and ending on dust. Really, really fine ending. And thank you for the nod to Tennessee at the beginning of that. I am in Tennessee right now, where it is,
Oh, okay.
yeah, 1,000,000 degrees. Yeah, it's very, very good. Very nice. Okay. Uh, Tornadoes. Are tornadoes something that you think of because you're in Texas?
Yes, I think I wrote this a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I think I live in the tornado alley,
Mhm.
but fortunately, knock on wood, for some reasons they pass like 10 miles away from us or 20 miles away from us. For some reason, I think after the DFW airport has been constructed, they kind of follow a different path
Mhm.
because of the wind pattern, I believe. But they do damage, they do a lot of damage. And especially this season, from March till like almost November,
Yeah,
it's their time. So there's always this in the back of my head that I need to check the weather before even I step out. It could be hail, it could be damaging winds, it could be a tornado watch, a tornado warning. So yeah.
same here. Same here. In Nashville, where I am. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Well, now the people who are taking part in the Smoke Long Summer Reading Group have been reading an uncorrected arc of the book, and so we are getting a sneak peek at the collection before it goes live, and we are so grateful to Dzank Books for allowing us to do this. And I know from speaking and chatting online with the participants of the reading group, they think you are great. Yeah, so what would you like to read for us now?
So this flash was published in Parenthesis Journal in, I believe, 2019. It's something I wrote. I wasn't sure if I should submit, but I did it anyway. So you'll find out from the title. Milky-eyed orgasm swallows me whole. One night, while on the patio sofa touching myself, I call my orgasm. And maybe because of some curiosity on her part, she emerges and sits beside me, part sweat, part flesh. A ripple, stardust on her edges, shimmering, a milky eyed orgasm. I joke that maybe I should introduce her to my parents. They don't have sex anymore. She laughs, places her delicate fingertips on my back, butterflies fluttering up my spine. Let me ruin you. She speaks like a window opened in spring, her words touched by the pollen beaded wind. Her teeth are small, pointed. Above us, a swollen yellow moon loiters. I was 12 when I first touched myself. By the time I felt you, you had already left. I look at her in a questioning, assessing gaze. Your heart can only take so much of love, she explains. I must protect you from yourself. The light around us grows frail. She inches towards me. Her face looks blurry up close. Everything is clearer after you're done with me, she whispers, thumbs my ear. I feel butterflies rise up my spine again. My mother calls my name from somewhere inside the house. I conjure her up, thin lips reciting her love for stone faced guards, little feet pacing the distance between her bedroom and the kitchen. The last time she was arguing with my father, their voices raised, insufferable, their cold presence. How shameful it must be to endure a relationship without love or desire. It's prayer time, I tell the orgasm, but she doesn't listen. Her fingers are snug between my thighs. She's dirty talking, words slipping out of her mouth, strung in a thread of saliva. I bird breathe, try to be as quick as I can. The night shivers like a membrane. My mother calls again. I hear her footsteps. Imagine the disapproving look if she sees my unzipped shorts, my tank top strapped below my shoulder, my left breast exposed. I try to push the orgasm away, but she doesn't leave. She's too happy to care, so she swallows me whole. My mother opens the patio door, her eyes averted in shame or disbelief, perhaps jealousy. The orgasm continues to work her magic as if licking a wound deep inside me, sweet and slightly hurtful, tickling, biting all at once. This is your living, she says. This is your will. This is your prayer until I come down like a wet bird. Stand up, my mother yells, her face beet red. What's wrong with you? She looks unbearably disgusted, but wants to watch. Darkness spills around us. I breathe in hard, feel the orgasm back in my bones, her pilot flame flickering satisfactorily between my legs. What's wrong with you? My mother shouts again, curses falling off her mouth like dry lumps of dirt. I don't say anything. I keep listening. I keep looking up at the moon that cuts the night, a hot patch between us, my heat reflected off it like glaze. Thank you.
That is such a poignant personification of an orgasm. Thank you so much, Tara.
Yeah.
And now, let's talk about mother-daughter relationships and what because I wrote something down from another story. Too much smartness and not enough touch.
Yeah, I'm going to read that story next.
Okay, great. Excellent. It's a good transition. So,
Yes.
but when I read this phrase, I thought, well, you know what? The mother probably is right. Too much smartness and not enough touch. I mean, because I think that's an honest way of looking at the world, that maybe there is not enough touch. And now, but we can compare that or contrast with the mother who is screaming what is wrong with you, because it is about touch. And it's that personification of that. And I'm just wondering, it's a complicated relationship, parent-child relationship, and it's throughout this. It permeates this collection. And so whatever question you glean from what I just asked, you can answer it, please.
So I think I was talking in the breakout room too. I was speaking to somebody from Publishers Weekly, a few days ago about they were interviewing me about this book, and they were actually looking for something particular to immigration or immigrant writers and stuff. And they said that, your book stood out because it's not a regular immigrant story, or the stories that they most commonly encounter, right? And those stories are very important too, and they are very, big and all such things. But they were attracted to the book because it speaks about immigration, or the fusion of ideas and thoughts and cultures in a very different way. So this particular piece has shame associated with it because it is talking about a physical desire, right? Which is what we don't look. We look at it as very private. We don't look at it as something public, and fairly so. But at the same time, we also want, when I say we meaning collective as parents or no elder figures, we also think our children to remain innocent all throughout their lives. That is somehow our way of, I don't know, protection, stopping them from in some way getting ruined, corrupted, from life itself. And that's why the title of my book, because as soon as you're born, that innocence starts going away because you're learning the world, you're trying ways to survive in it. You learn about sex, you learn about manipulation because of that, you learn about fame, you learn about controlling, you learn about exploiting others. And so, you are getting further from the point that you were born with, like a clean slate. And so I think that piece is some disappointment on the parents' part, that no matter how hard I try, I can't keep my kid away from this natural instinct. At the same time, being a human themselves, they want to witness it because that's their primal urge. So I was going with that, philosophy.
Excellent.
In
Yeah.
that piece.
And when I was rereading it yesterday, I thought, I wonder if Tara's going to read this one. And there you go. And all right. So what a coincidence. So the next story, my mother visits America, and is
Yes.
finish the title for us.
Yeah, sure. So this one, my mother visits me in America and is offended by what the dishwasher can do, was published in OK Donkey. It was also a Bath Flash Award longlister. And so I'm very happy with this small piece of writing. She asks if there's a human inside who scrubs the dishes and puts them back as they came in. I laugh, kiss her on her forehead, dipping my nose into her thinning hair. I smear creamy lotion on my mother's calloused palms. White settles in the trench of her lifeline. Years of washing dishes for restaurants to send me to school, to buy books and uniforms after Pa died. Her back curved on Toby guards, wringing out towels, sheets, her long face against the fabric on the clothesline, siphoning damp relief. Now, next to the sink where she has rinsed her life, a dishwasher is draining erasure into the creases on her forehead. During the day, she sticks her finger in the tufts of silverware holders, presses the soap pellets on her wash-annulled palms, their scent embroidered into her shadow. After dinner, her rosary-shaped eyes wait until the red LED of the machine turns off, expecting someone to walk out drenched in water, laced in froth. I haven't embraced the porcelain in days, she complains, her eyes dull with boredom. My limbs are sore from underuse. Ma, I have it all so you can rest now. I plunge my gloved hands into the greasy dishwater in the sink, a mechanical whirring of the motor starting in the background. I wake up at nights, my mother says, and grow sad about the world. It's dying because there's too much smartness and not enough touch. I shake my head and hear the mushy hurt of her guts, deep breaths, snorted air, a washcloth, cringed wetness split between us. It's a curse not to use your gift to serve. Besides, what do you do your entire life if not clean? First, the skin for good health, then the tongue with silence, and last, the mind with compassion, my mother says. I don't know what to say, so I interlace my fingers in hers. They don't fit as they once did. There are gaps from which the light escapes. Thank you.
And it must be said, you are so good at endings. Really, really, really. And so at some point, I would love for you to do a workshop for us or a webinar or something about endings. But now, can we teach people to create wonderful, beautiful endings that are like a coda that feels like boom right there?
So I don't. Sometimes I begin with the end in my mind because I know that the end comes to me before the story does. And I think of it, wow, that's a great ending, right? But in Flash, as you know, the good thing is either to start from the ending or start somewhere from where the conflict already is or has started and you are in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fun. How do you go from that point? Because that's where the true characters are revealed, who they are. So I think this story was also I was thinking of stopping it where I said it's dying because there's too much smartness and not enough love, right? I mean, that's how I envisioned it because I thought that was a great line. But when I wrote it, I was also in a hurry to submit it to Bath Flash Awards. So I make this mistake often, and I hope none of you does that. If you're doing it, is not to submit a story too soon, because once you stay with it, something else miraculous will happen. It will happen. I can guarantee you every time that I have waited and I have thought about it, I come to an ending which is not very loud, which is not detrimental in some ways, but it conveys the human limitations. It conveys how we grow apart from each other in relationships, how we grieve at that, even if we don't know about it. And so I kind of reached at this ending or any other ending of my story for the stories that I waited, for the stories that I kept aside. I read something and I'm struck with a different ending. And I'm like, yes, this is where I want to end it because it ties up the story very well. And yet it is undone. Every story of mine is undone. The story needs to be undone because a story never finishes. It just keeps going on and on and on. But you have to pause it for the reader to take away the message from it that you're trying to convey. So that's my long-winded answer to your question.
No, I could listen for another hour. But yeah, I feel the same exact way about endings. Of course, I guess there are those times when you like on a first or second draft or something, and you hit an ending and you're like, oh my God, whatever
Right.
you do, don't lose that. But and I've told people in the workshops before that writing is often like a crossword puzzle. That you need to walk away from it to come back and see what you've missed. And so endings are like that. You walk away, you put it down for a while, and you come back to it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's not the ending. Or you see something else that you've missed. And anybody who works crossword puzzles knows that you can stare at it for hours and you just don't see it. You walk
Yes.
away for 5 minutes, come back, and you're like, boom, there it is. So very, very, very good advice of walking away, not sending it out yet.
Yes.
mean, what is the rush? I mean, what is the rush? You don't need to send it out. Okay, have you ever felt, Tara, a moment when you're like, oh my God, I have to send this out right now?
I do it every time, Chris.
Oh no.
And that's my issue. And I think because of writing the short stories, I got better at it because they were not finished as quickly as a flash would present itself. Even though the flash was not finished, but it presented itself like it was done. But with the short stories, I knew that, it's not done. With my brain telling me not to rush because I'm not even done with it. So I
Yeah.
think I developed that patience more so with writing the short stories and again letting them sit and not being in a hurry to submit so that I can prove to the world that I have such and such story coming out. I can have people read at it and tell me how great it is. We all want attention, right? And so a lot of it is sometimes driven by that. And it's unfortunate
Yeah.
because that forces you to settle with something that's not ready or that's not there yet.
Okay, so fighting against that urge is
Yes.
is important. I agree. Um, and I just keep telling myself if I could just finish something these days, it would be a miracle. So I'm not the one we're talking to right now, but everyone else here. Okay, so be patient with yourself. Now, we're coming to the Q&A, and I'm going to start off because this is a great transition from flash to short story because there are longer stories in this collection. And you, as a person who straddles the fence between various lengths of narrative and poetry and how has being a flash writer changed the way you think about short story, or has it?
Um, so I wanted to do short stories also because of the fact that I learned that the flash collections are hard to sell. So it was sort of me pushing myself into an area to do something different than what I did last time.
Mhm.
And so in that process, the longer stories that you see here, a lot of them were not longer stories. They were flash pieces before. For example, Shabnam Salamat is a very long story. It's about 3,500 words. It was a flash piece that came out in Witness literary magazine. But again, it was easily stretchable, not how it was, but more getting more stuff added to it, like more things happening in later. So it is still written in a flash format because there is a lot of stuff happening in that story. So it's not one of those stories where I don't like to write stories where uh, how should I say, which are quieter, which are more like, ruminating types. I like to read those. I love them, but for some reason, I want to have action happening, something happening in my stories. And Flash taught me that because in Flash, you just have to get to some action. And so I think my brain is still, wired in a Flash mode. So even my short stories have like these incidents or these things that are tied together in a bigger story, but they are more or less flash style. Um, and then
Yeah.
again, I did some other stories which were, which don't satisfy the length of flash, but I would call them longer flash because if a story is, let's say, 1,300, 1,400 words, it's still not a short story in my definition. It's still a longer flash. So
Yeah, and some journals actually have 1,500 words as the flash
yes,
over
yes,
uh, upper limit. And so, yeah, these word limits are quite arbitrary. Whether it feels like flash is that's the difference. And
right,
making a story modular or making it like in bits, and so you can see that your longer stories are
right.
are given to you in bits. and of course, we see novels, whole novels given to us like that these days. And so there is that feeling of, um, a flash and a flash and a flash. And I'm glad you said that, Tara, about needing something to happen in Flash, because that's the criticism. And I know you've read for journals, and I know some other people here have read for journals that's sometimes the criticism in the queue is the writing's okay, but nothing happens. So for a story, that feeling of story to be there, I don't know, we just feel like something needs to happen. And from the very beginning, as I think Tara said. Now, somebody else had a question earlier in the breakout room, and it was about straddling languages and how that has affected the way you write. And because you mentioned the tongue and the language before, um, has has there been an influence for specifically from Hindi? I mean,
Yes.
if I were going from English to German, I would, of course, think, yeah, I'm sure I'm influenced by English to German. Is there an influence from Hindi to English?
Yes. So a lot of my stories, I don't know how to explain it, but I think about them in my native language.
Mhm.
They come to me in my native language because that's how my brain interprets them. And then I kind of, develop them in English. Obviously, they are true to English in terms of how they are presented on the paper. But the idea, the way my brain talks to me is in my native language.
Excellent. And I think that is such an enrichment of the writing because everyone has an approach. And I'm thinking of my linguistics training from about 40 years ago about the deep structure of what we're trying to communicate. And so that deep structure is closer to your mental language, what's
Right.
going on, right? Okay, excellent. Does anyone else have um, a question before we end? Not necessarily punctually, because we'll take one more question. You can throw it out into the chat, or you can actually unmute yourself and ask.
Christopher, I wanted to ask about the poetry part.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tara, one of your friends was in our in our little breakout room, and we talked about how I thought that you use a very poetic voice and poetic courage in your stories. I'm just in awe of your ability to start one place and end up someplace else. And I mean, I write some poetry, but I'm not a poet. So I'm curious, like, how does that work for you? Can you share some of that?
So are you saying like my story started someplace and ended someplace else? Is that what you...
Sentences, like, just, you know how in poetry there's a bravery about, like, I can say anything in the sentence, right? And you, because the construct of poetry is, I think, less, in some ways, less limiting. And you are at this intersection of, I don't care either. Like, it seems, right? You say the most daring, amazing things in one sentence that seems to me as very lyric, if not outright poetry. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. So again, the thing is that this is my medium to express myself. So I don't hold back. I mean, I'm very, because in life, generally speaking, and that may be true with most of us here, we have to be a certain way. We have to behave a certain way. And I don't mean, like, I'm not saying we should behave in bad ways, but we have to live in a society, to live in a relationship, to be a parent, to be a spouse, to be an employee, there's just so many things that just keep you in a certain constraints, right? There are boundaries of everything. And when it comes to writing, I generally try to put those, fences down a little bit, like my orgasm story, for example. I told, right, I wasn't sure if I should submit it because it's, to me at least, it's so much out there. It's like, making myself naked in a way. I mean, expressing my how desire looks to me, what an orgasm looks to me, and that is not easy, at least not for me. So, but when I wrote it, I wanted to keep it poetic and also raw. I wanted to have readers connect with it because it is what it is. And I try to always ask myself, am I sugarcoating it because I'm afraid to say what it should be? Or am I taking the risk and trusting the reader to seek a deeper meaning in this? And I always go with the latter. I always trust the reader to, to take a deeper meaning out of it and not just treat it as some, something which is just surface level. I'm just writing it to shock people is not my intention. My intention is to talk about things which are difficult, but which are also vital to us as human beings. So, and it's especially difficult because if there's a taboo around it, then definitely I will talk about it. Because, why do we have a taboo around it? A lot of crimes happen in places because we have taboos around them, right? And human beings tend to be curious about those things, and they tend to do those things because they're told not to do those things. So, sex or the talk about sex or desire is one of them, and you will probably see that in most of my stories. You will see talk about desire in some way or another, especially female desire. I don't know if I answered your question, but
more than I expected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Part of that question, because I was in the breakout room when we were talking about it, part of that question was also about the bravery to go from realism to magic realism to like taking your allowing your imagination to take you wherever it wants to go, and that bravery just to go with it. And that was also part of the discussion that we had. And a couple of people were saying, "Oh, I just I can't do that." And they were, but full of respect for the ability to just go there is great, for stories that deal with taboo. And I think Flash is a wonderful place to do that. Not that every other form of art is not, but Flash is also a great place to do that. But do you ever start a story thinking this is going to be magic realism, or this is going to be realism, or do you have anything like that in your head, or do you just allow the narrative to surprise you?
Some of the stories, Chris, I know are not going to be magical realism. Like I had a story called, I have a story here called White Ash. It's about a child missing. I didn't want to write it, in any supernatural terms. I wanted to show the grief of the parents and their relationship, going through this tragedy. And so my intention was very clear on it right from the start. So I kind of kept it real. I kind of kept it sad. I kept it, whatever I needed to for the story. It's a very real story, and it's a very sad story. So the other stories, like there is a story about snakes. I don't know if you had a chance to read that. It's called Ghosts of the Unborn. It's about, a husband changing form into a reptile. And I think I started with that notion, but again, as the narrative became clearer to me, I kind of dwelled more and more into the magic realism side, because I found it easier to show the things I wanted to convey about loss, loneliness, through metaphors, through this form of magical realism. And it's also exciting for the reader because they don't know what's going to happen, right? So there's this suspense, there's this built up, and there's this maybe some admiration, right, for the mind of the writer to expose them to something they didn't expect. So that excites me. That opportunity excites me. So I try to take it when I can, but some stories are very obvious to me right from the start.
I hope everyone will pre-order Ruined a Little When We Are Born by Tara Isabel Zambrano, coming out maybe on October 15th, maybe before that, maybe after that, but this fall from Dzank Books, the wonderful people at Dzank Books. And so go to Dzank Books or wherever you buy books, pre-order it. And Tara, thank you so much for reading for us today and talking to us about your new collection. And everyone else here, I'll see you in the workshop. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.